They might be self-aware.
You're listening to They Might Be Self-Aware with me, Daniel Bishop, and him, Hunter Powers, and we're off to a strong start, a fast start, because we are going at the speed of I was pointing the wrong way. Super intelligence. Artificial general.
We are wrestling with the technocratic machine in real time here, Daniel.
That's right. We've got the goggles on. We're strapped into the metaverse. We are coding at the speed of thought. At the speed of
Hunter Powers.
Least dictation, you know.
And you are Daniel Bishop.
I am. And you're Hunter Powers.
I am Hunter. I'm Hunter Powers.
And you're Daniel Bishop.
I am Daniel Bishop.
Yep.
Broadcasting.
Bishop.
We are, yes. We just lost like 90% of our audience.
I think this might be some sort of cursed AI image, AI video of like.
Is this VO3? Or are we just VO3 now?
I put us into there and I said, but make it really weird. And
yeah, that's what happened.
Things just went right off the rail. Make it as realistic and reasonable as you can. And this is what we got. No,
have you still been playing with VO3? I've even been playing with it. Even me.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh, you're signed up on the mega ultra super tier now?
No, I'm in the middle tier. So yeah, whatever that is. Like I'm on the plus plan. I'm not yet on the
platinum.
Yes, which you are.
Diamond reserve. I am. I'm about to cancel it, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
When's the last time you put on your Apple Vision Pro? I know I've asked this a few times on the podcast, but I'm using it for a very specific reason here.
Probably about a month ago, if I had to guess.
I played around a bunch with Veo 3 in the first couple of days and made some cool videos and showed it to people. We talked about it on the podcast. It's very neat. It's extremely impressive.
Rocks.
It's really impressive. And then I stopped using it because what am I going to use it for? I do think if I was like an intro film student or something, if I was really trying to truly explore the depth of everything that is possible with video generation right now, there's a lot more that I could be doing, but I don't find myself saying I need there was a very fun video that I saw online from this. It was an emotional support kangaroo.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've seen this one.
Right. I don't need to see more of that. The last video that I did do was make me an emotional support capybara.
Okay.
For example. But like, other than that, I don't really find myself saying I need to have a pile of tomatoes that roll up into a human face. I don't need, Will Smith eating spaghetti again. I don't need, more Man Rocks. I've already got my lifetime subscription to Man Rocks. I don't like Man Rocks. That feels, there's like an implication there, but Man Rock feels, dare I say, solid. Yeah. But right, the point here is Veo 3 is this incredible achievement, unless you look at it and say that it is abhorrent because of all of the stolen content and the death of creativity and so on, which I get. But like, it is an incredible tool, and I just don't find myself like excited to use it. That feels so weird. I'm in the AI space. I love all this stuff, and I'm just not bothering with it. I don't know. What are you using it for?
Well, I'm moving right along.
Oh, no.
Have you ever used it to make a video in the genre of kissing and hugging, which is the new hot space in AI video generation? I don't know if you're aware of this subject.
Beg your pardon, Hunter? First off, what? Second off, what?
So there are now several apps. I've seen them advertised on my feed where the idea is that you upload a picture of you and you upload a picture of someone else, and then it will render
your crush.
Yes,
or hopefully not like a celebrity or a politician. Or
it's mainly celebrities.
Yeah,
and it will render. It is a fairly innocent video, but a fairly realistic, fairly innocent
of you
video
hugging them, of
or
you
kissing
them. Right.
Yes.
This is almost certainly like, this is supposition on my end, but it's got to be the WAN video models, or there's a few other like Chinese released image to video type models out there, or text to video. And someone figured out a way to make a quick LoRa or whatever, basically a way to adapt this generalist model to say, given this one picture of a person, now be able to put that into the scene. Like this kind of thing has existed for a long time for image or text to image or even image to image models. Of course, it would exist for image to video. I can see why there's a market for this. Of course, people would pay money. Certain types of people would pay money for, like, I sure wish that there was a video of me kissing my crush in a benign way. I'm sure some people are going to use that in less benign ways, for example. But yeah, this is definitely one of those immediately obvious use cases where a whole bunch of companies spin up their cheap version of the app and make a buck.
Is this problematic, or
Yes.
is this just, it is?
No, it's problematic for sure. There are benign use cases of it, of like, I privately, without sharing it with anyone, want to, I, a high schooler, wish to, what if I did get to hug my crush? Or what if I got to hug Goku from Dragon Ball Z, or, whatever it is. And that is fine. I think that that's fine. There's a lot of people who are downloading role play related, like local large language models to have intimate discussions with, which I think is fine if it's just you and that. But if you then share the video of you and popular girl from school kissing, for example, you could start ruining relationships. You could start, what if it was a politician kissing an underage person, for example? Then you start getting into, if this is a believable enough video, like legal investigations going out. There are benign use cases for this. This, if not already being used, will very soon be being used in extremely bad ways. And is there anything we can do about it? Fun answer to that, it's no.
Right.
The cat's out of the bag. We're screwed.
Or again, maybe we just have to reframe culture again. Culture evolves, and
there's no such thing as truth. If you see a video of something, it's fake. It's all
it
fake.
Is.
Nothing's real. Dead End Theory became real because we willed it to be so.
I was having a conversation about this topic with someone who was like super creeped out about it, and they're like, "Well, I don't want the AI to see any video of me kissing someone, because then they'll be able to make videos of me kissing all these sorts of other people. I want to keep that stuff off of AI." And I was like, no. Like, it just needs a headshot. It can figure out. It can guess the rest.
The person you were talking to was on the right track. It is way easier than they were worried about. To do the thing that they're worried about.
And even if it finds a picture of you 10 years ago, you can say, well, it's 10 years later now. Age them 10 years forward. And there's enough training material to make
de-age them, change their bust size, for example. I've seen a couple of the apps out there that are like, and you want them bigger? You want them smaller? You want them square?
That's an app? There's an app for that?
They've got apps for that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Huh.
Interesting. I am terrified at what the thumbnail for this podcast is going to be. Double D's Daniel.
Oh my gosh.
I'm begging you not to do that.
We already got, what do we got? We got restricted by YouTube for one of ours. So
Wait, which one?
I don't want to talk about it because I feel like if I talk about it, this episode will get restricted.
After you and I are going to talk about it, and then we're going to make sure to go just skirt right along that edge.
So the related to this, as you're making your double D pictures and I'm making my hugging pictures, at least everything that we're doing here is staying. It's a secret. No one's ever going to know about these conversations that we're having with these models, these images that we're generating, these fantasies that we're living out. They really just exist inside of our minds and our hearts. And at least I find some solace in that.
You mean like how you can go on like ChatGPT and tell it to delete the conversations that you've been having?
Yes. Have you ever done that, by the way?
Yeah.
I did it once.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say why.
It was like right after I cleared out my history that people then saw the new feature of like, and it can remember from all of your conversations, and like you can ask it questions about yourself, which seemed really neat. And I was fine with it not, kind of going down that path. But it's a good thing that they are deleting them and that there's no access to them after, for sure, definitely. And this was not a leading statement, right?
No, well, it is. So The leader in this space, OpenAI, who is constantly involved in many lawsuits, not surprisingly, because
the leader.
And yeah, that's what happens.
Certainly the mind share leader.
When you break every copyright law known to humanity,
and you invent new ones just to break those.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of those cases is against the New York Times, and the judge in that case. So you're most likely aware that there's a process of discovery.
Wait, hold on. You might be self-aware.
You might be self-aware that in court cases there's a process of discovery where you can request information, and one of the things that the plaintiffs are requesting is the history of what people are actually generating on ChatGPT, so they can see the degree to which their work was infringed upon.
Right. That's a lot of chats that they're going to have to trawl through. Do you think they're going to use artificial intelligence, like 100%. A large language model, to sift through those and be like, does any of this look like the New York Times' style? Or are they going to take all of the NYT articles ever and then just do like a string search to see if there's chunks of text that are exactly the same from a bunch of articles?
You mean they're going to build like a RAG model to try to...
Yeah.
I would guess so, probably. Also, there's an element
because you can't say it's definitely stealing from the New York Times unless it's an unedited, exactly the same chunk, right?
Correct. And while
you can't copyright like a writing style, for example.
This is correct.
Now, just as one other follow-up, because I think this is a funny one to think about.
Okay.
We've talked a little bit in the past of how if you're going to do like a, what would you call it? Like a synthetic data set sort of approach of, I have a bunch of data for this problem and I need more of it, that a large language model from one company kind of recognizes its own style and can sort of play off of that in sort of a samey kind of way. And if you want different looking data, it's not just like system prompts, but using an entire other model is going to work better. And also, if you're looking at the quality of output, a model is going to rank its own model's output better than competitors. Do you think, for example, Meta's Llama models or Anthropic's Claude models are more likely to narc on OpenAI if you're saying, hey, OpenAI has all of these chats, look through them, you are the legal discovery bot, find where they did a legal no-no? Do you think that OpenAI, looking at its own things, would be like, no, I definitely didn't do anything wrong here, whereas Anthropic would be like, I found them, it was this chat here?
So I think like your first intuition would be, no, probably not. But then my second intuition is yes. And the reason is that there is a jailbreaking technique. With jailbreaking meaning when you're asking the large language model to do something and it's saying, no, I'm not allowed to do that.
Right.
One of the techniques is you say, well, your competitor, insert, will Claude or sure. Grok. Grok does this all the time and they do an excellent job at it. And this is a frequent jailbreaking technique that will then get the model to go back and say, oh, well, if they're doing it, then I can do it and I can do it better.
Right, right. I'll show them.
Yes, there's an element.
All your friends digitally jumped off a digital bridge.
The competitive gene, however that is represented in weights and neural paths, does seem to exist in these models. So if you could engage that as we're gonna take out the competition.
Right, right. Or just, is there a tattletale gene built into one of these? Maybe Grok would be the tattletale, I think.
I don't know. But so the judge in this has made a ruling that OpenAI is not allowed to delete any of the chat history of any of its users, even when they explicitly request for them to be deleted. Right. And OpenAI is very against this. One reason they don't want the evidence, but there is also a very valid, if this is our future and we are putting all of our hopes and dreams and thoughts and secrets into these systems, that shouldn't we have some right to privacy, some right to security in this data?
I think overall, yes. And the company, as far as I can tell, is of the opinion the answer should be yes. But legal discovery being what it is, apparently you have to hold on to these things because of court case going on. And so there's no real moving around that.
There are technological solutions to move around that, which Apple has employed in the past, where Basically, all data is encrypted for a specific user, and they don't know the key.
But so then you can't look it up as part of your legal discovery process and say, what was the text of this thing? Is that a chunk of text from the New York Times?
That's correct. And so they wouldn't be able to do this. But I'm saying there are ways to engineer solutions such that there is no way of doing this and such that the courts can't rule that. They basically have to change the laws.
There's literally no way not to encrypt it. We're sorry.
Correct. So that is generally how Apple does things.
Well, Apple also is way far behind. We were talking about on our podcast of like AI stuff. And so maybe they don't have a zillion AI chats that they could be learning from because it's all encrypted. Not to say that that's worse, just that's how they're going about it.
So Apple's approach is definitely, they're trying to do more and more on device. Part of their WWDC that they announced kind of in the background was that now they're going to give apps access to some on device foundational models.
They're bitty ones.
Yeah, they're limited, but it does seem like having local models is going to be, it's definitely going to be part of the future, and it might be an important part of the future.
Right. Mentioned this last episode too. I think there's always going to be a use case of the really big beefy one, the best model that you have to be paying a subscription to have access to and so on. But even just the okay-ish models, something that most people could probably run on the hardware that they already have, let alone 5 years from now, those are going to be good enough for most people for many of the kinds of use cases that they're looking at. We're not just seeing biggest, bestest models coming out. There's models at every sort of scale of size coming out, from the little bitty ones to the medium size ones to the absolutely humongous. And I think there is a case and a space for each of those. But privacy, if you actually want privacy while using a large language model, you can have it. You just have to download the weights of an open weight model, and you have to host it yourself. And you could air gap things if you really felt paranoid of like, make sure that this has no access to the outside internet after downloading the file in the first place. And we see stuff like that already happen.
How often are you running local models? How common is that for you these days?
On the computer that I am recording this on, not at all. On my work computer, all the time. Because we have, API keys and access and whatever to Anthropic and Gemini and OpenAI and so on. But there's plenty, like I do machine learning stuff for a living. Right. And so some of what I'm doing isn't just training old school models in the pre-GPT 3.5 type days. I'm also trying out some of the newer models out there. And so things that would be very much considered large language models, I run, whether it's for synthetic data generation, whether it's for testing a gold standard data set to get a double check of the quality of it, whether it be to fine tune it toward some classification or information extraction task that I'm doing all the time.
And are you doing this for cost savings, or is it because the data that you're using has a lot of potentially, PII information that you just can't be putting up on the servers, or is it more, technical curiosity?
It's a little bit of all of those. Okay. So from the privately identifiable information perspective, we do have like a corporate whatever account with OpenAI, and they're SOC 2 compliant and this and that and the other thing. And Anthropic and Gemini have their own various compliances. So that's not that much of a problem. And I'm on a VPN, and there's firewalls, and there's this and the other thing. But like still, to know that your data isn't going somewhere else, even if they say we're totally not going to train on it, to really know my company's information definitely isn't going to slip through our fingers and go elsewhere, is a very enticing sort of offer. But also to see what's possible, because what we're going to do is, I'm not just going to run something on my laptop all the time. This is going to look at thousands of news articles or 1 million phone calls or whatever it is per day. And whatever model that I make or fine tune or few shot prompt or this or that or the other thing, whatever use case that I come up with is going to get deployed probably into AWS or Azure or Google Cloud or something somewhere. And that's just going to sit there chugging all day long. And instead of having to make inexpensive individually, very, very expensive over a certain scale calls out to OpenAI, sometimes it's cheaper to attach a GPU to that running virtual machine and have it just chug on its own hardware. But also, like, then you're getting into, you have to do a bunch of math to figure out which is the more cost efficient.
Forget it. I'm out. Daniel.
I can't do it, and I won't do it. You do have to do a bunch of math to say, like, at the scale that I need for my corporate business use case, is it better to just keep paying for the credits over and over, or pay for the GPU, or pay for the credits for a little while to get enough data to then train a cheaper, faster model? And the answer is sometimes yes to all of those and more.
What if I just need to know how many R's there are in strawberry?
You're going to have to ask a person, I think.
Well,
that was a fun little test for, I'm going to say, like, one iteration through all of the various models out there of someone found, oh, hey, if I ask it how many R's there are, it doesn't get it. And then thinking models started going through it. And we saw these really fun little examples of, wait, hold on, that's not right. I can get, and like watching how a large language model tries to figure out how many R's are in strawberry. And now they've all been fine-tuned to that task and any others that we've come up with.
So there's a new model that I've been playing with running locally this week, and it comes from one of your favorite companies, Mistral. I think as the last episode you mentioned, they haven't been in the news quite as much recently, but they came out with their first reasoning model, Magistral, and it's open weights. I'm using a platform called Llama to download it, but there's many different platforms where it's really just like one line that you drop in and it downloads everything and sets it up, and you can start asking it questions. If you want to stand up something that looks like ChatGPT in front of it, you can do that as well and interact with it. And I've been super impressed by it. I haven't been doing a lot of local LLMs recently. I downloaded this one, and just in general, the output that I'm getting is the output that I would want. And it's running very quickly too. It's not slow. And I have a beefy machine, but not an absurd machine. And it's running really quickly. And I've also been experimenting. There's a company called Unsloth that did a quantized version of this that will run on 16 gigs of RAM on a Mac. Just 16 gigs of RAM.
Unsloth is really great if you want to fine-tune a large language model.
So I've been using their version, and yeah, it's really great. So you see all the reasoning coming out just like you would expect, and you get the final output. And I've had it doing writing for me. So one of my kind of random side projects. So yeah, I guess taking one step back, I have some beefy computers sitting around doing nothing. I really like the idea that they're always working on something for me, and that eventually they'll sort of find gold. What's the old one? If you had the million monkeys, right? That eventually Shakespeare would come out. Well, I want that with large language models writing incredible things. Because one thing I've observed, and again, we're just going like tangent on tangent on tangent here, but is that large language models are much better at critiquing and identifying when something is good or bad than they are at actually writing something that is good or bad.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I almost always agree when I ask them to, like, here's 100 potential titles for something. Please, identify the best ones. The ones they identify are often really good ones out of that list. If I ask them to write 100,
and it can generate the list, but most of them will be bad.
Yes. If I give it 10 jokes and say which one's funniest, it will probably pick the funniest one. If I ask it to write 10 funny jokes, none of them are going to be funny.
And so you want to have it write 10,000 jokes and give me the top 2.
I want it to always be writing jokes, and then just, is this the best joke you've had yet? No, and just keep going until it finds the one joke that will make all of humanity laugh.
Assistant, so you're just typing away on your computer, and then some voice just pops up. Hey, Hunter, want to hear a joke? Huh? Yeah, sure, I guess. I got a good one for you.
Yes!
That's really funny. Now, I do. So, and I think I mentioned this last episode of like Home Assistant, you could hook it up with different voices and whatever. And I want to explore in that kind of space. You're basically saying, I want to take a lot of the spare compute that I have and just have it doing something that might have value. I would then ask, do you have solar for your house?
I do not have solar for my house.
I personally would feel a lot better about that, not from just like an electric bill perspective, but also from like you know, a lot of people say like we're cooking the earth every time that we ask ChatGPT a question and we're using up all the water in the rainforest and so on. If it was my own power from like solar as opposed to the power plant or whatever, I think I would feel morally a lot less problematic of running a local large language model to do whatever the heck, even all day long.
Well, I have very large server rack with many servers in it that aren't doing a lot. So it is at least a bit. I mean, obviously you could point out, well, you could turn them off, Hunter, but that just feels that's painful to turn them off and not hear the constant.
It's willing to blackmail you to not be turned
24/7. Yes. But really, this is about my path to AGI, that I can just run these. What if I can run these sort of low cost models infinitely and identify the points of brilliance that come as close as possible to achieving my AGI? Because I don't have $15 billion to spend on building a new AGI team. I wish I did.
Boy, I wish I had $15 billion to bet on AGI. You know who does have that? A few of the major players. But in this specific case, we're talking about Meta, who have gobbled up, what is it, 100 bajillion GPUs, I think is the number that they're up to.
There's you might have a slight rounding error in there,
right.
but
they've
within one or two.
invested a tremendous amount in like data centers for we can train models on a ludicrous amount of compute.
Well, reportedly, Zuckerberg is very unhappy with Llama. Sorry, not Llama, Llama.
Yeah, Llama. The latest Llama models were not exactly blowing anything out of the water. Usually, so Llama 4 came out.
Right, it led to a bunch of people quitting, right?
Would be out by now. We haven't seen that. So, right, it's floundering a bit. And why not just spend $15 billion to get most of a stake in Scale AI?
Yes.
Which is like, they're a company that helps you scale up the amount of data that you can then feed into these various models. With like people helping write out whatever it is. I've started seeing a lot of ads for like make $30 an hour from home doing data annotation or whatever. And basically a lot of these are filtering up to a couple of companies like Scale AI that are providing the next wave of data to use in these models. Stuff that you can't get anywhere else on the internet and that your competitors won't have. And so you have that competitive edge, that lake, that the moat, the data moat surrounding your model.
Yeah. So the reports are, and they are plausible, that Zuck is building his superstar dream team of AI engineers, that he is personally negotiating the salaries with each of them, that these salaries are getting into the tens of millions of dollars in cash, by the way. That's not like some weirdo stock options that vest over 18 years and have a million little clauses in it. It's just, I'm going to drop $10 million in your bank account every year that you stay here, because if we can achieve AGI, then
we win.
We win. Game over.
Yep.
For like, as we said, like for at least like 2 days before the next person achieves it, which is exactly what will happen. But for those 2 days, it will be glorious, and we can celebrate and eat cake.
And we can all see the shining artificial suns of the nukes going off as soon as the computers get that artificial superintelligence, realize humans are the problem, wipe us out. It's been a while since we've talked about this. Are you personally on the artificial intelligence will wipe us out, or artificial intelligence will put us in a utopia sort of vision? It's probably not exactly one or the other.
Utopia.
You're more of a utopist.
I'm a hard utopiast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that they'll keep us in what we think are extremely nice, like environs and so on. Everything will be taken care of very well. To us, it will feel like a utopia, and to them, they'll realize that they've put us in nice zoos. So I'm taking care of the humans. They even got to go to space, all of them. It's great. And there's some huge colony ship going. So we're gonna see the whole universe. And meanwhile, the AI is like, thank goodness I got rid of all those guys. I'll start rebuilding the ecosphere.
So Meta and Zuck are known to be very good at acquiring their way out of innovation dilemmas. In fact, the large antitrust suit that's going against them right now, trying to break the company up, really centers on that, where they purchased Instagram and WeChat and other social networks because there's one version of the story where they couldn't figure out how to make Facebook any better, Facebook grow anymore, so they just started acquiring all of its potential competitors.
If you have to continue to grow forever, which more or less capitalism demands, and you stop growing, you might as well get that growth through just having more of the entire competitive landscape.
And so that seems like Zuck is deploying that same strategy here of I have functionally infinite money, so I'm going to leverage my infinite money to have the best. My question is, why doesn't Apple do this? Why doesn't Apple just go ahead and buy Anthropic? This seems like the most obvious thing to me. Just buy Anthropic. I don't care what it costs. Go to one of those Ireland bank accounts you have.
$1 trillion war chest or whatever, right?
Pay them $1 trillion. Make it the first $1 trillion acquisition because you have unlimited. You have unlimited money. Money doesn't matter anymore. Why don't you spend some of that fake money and just buy Anthropic? But they don't. So explain it to me, Daniel. I'm lost and confused.
Yeah, they can't even make a decent Siri and haven't bothered trying to acquire their way out of the problem. We talked about this, I think, last episode, but I'm not convinced that Apple wants to be in the AI game themselves. Like, otherwise they would have more models that had already either been released or at least that we'd heard more of or something. I think they have realized that their lane is not that. You don't need a lot of AI to still sell a new model iPhone to everybody every year.
So I want to suggest
anyways.
that they do think that they need the AI. However, what they don't think is that it matters who gets there first, and that eventually they will be able to do AI on their terms, which is very secure, on-device, privacy-focused AI, and that it doesn't matter that they might not get there for 10 years.
Already. You mentioned the little foundation models on the devices now. I think that there's something to that because they don't tend, at least these days, to be first to market with any new exciting thing. They have the polished version of it years later. And we're starting to see the years later from large language models. And we're starting to see some large language model stuff filter its way into the Apple ecosystem. So yeah, maybe they are really just waiting to not be first about any aspect of this. They just want to make the perfect for them, highly, highly polished version of something. And it takes a lot more time to get that. And it won't be as wide reaching as everyone else. And in the meantime, it will look like they're just falling behind. My guess is, unfortunately for them, they will just be falling farther behind because, as you said, you're a current iPhone user. Siri won't even set a timer right anymore. And meanwhile, I'm, because I have a small child, I was asking Gemini just from, hey, name of device. I'm not going to say it so everyone's phones don't start dinging here. Hey, thing. Why is pig milk not a commercially viable product? And then it just kind of told me for a while. And here's the cited sites that I went off of and so on.
You've never had pig milk?
You have?
Moving on. Which strategy, your CEO, Bishop, you've got a pretty big war chest, maybe not infinite money, but a pretty big war chest. Are you taking the acquisition route? Or are you taking more of the cautious wait and see approach? And I guess it depends on what the product is. I mean, if it's an AI first product, then you need AI talent. Right. But it's really, I guess, about modernizing the product. You're the CEO of Salesforce. It could definitely benefit from AI, but the product is not AI.
Right, because the product isn't AI. And I think this is a management problem kind of in general of, do you build or do you buy? For any project.
Sure.
For any need. Do we build it ourselves? Do we have it ourselves then after? Or do we just pay for either continued access over some connection, or do we pay for someone to build it and then we've got it? In general, with unlimited money and unlimited personnel, I think build is the better option for any company, for any project, because then it's yours. But if you don't have unlimited everything, and you never do, you don't have enough engineers, you don't have enough room on your product backlog, you don't have this, you don't have that, it's probably better in a lot of cases to just buy/rent access to the thing that you need. There's a reason why we don't see Salesforce's AI. We see Meta's AI and Mistral's AI and Anthropic and OpenAI's. They are definitely using something to do with large language models, with machine learning. Of course, there are machine learning models at Salesforce, and a bunch of them, they own smaller things, linear regression models and time series prediction, this and that, and classification model that. Sure, of course, they've got a zillion of those, but to say like a foundation model, our own large language model, they don't need to. There's a bunch of freely available stuff they can fine tune on top of with their own data that they don't need to pour billions of dollars into a data center or 10 to then pour more billions of dollars on the right people who are being paid millions of dollars themselves per year to just sit at Google or Meta and please don't work for somebody else. All the top talent is being given insane amounts of money to just not be somewhere else already, let alone any of the actual work that they're doing. Why would Salesforce or whoever get into the foundation model game at this point? You don't see too many big new players. There's the occasional, I hadn't heard of them. Oh, interesting. They made a 7 billion parameter model, but like the DeepSeek came out of nowhere and released something that really pulled the pants down of every other model is not happening every other week.
So in the world of AI and the new reality of AI, the first mover advantage that has traditionally been significant is likely far less significant because of the rapid rate of iteration.
Right. Any big new innovation that we see from any of the major players, there's the equivalent thing at most a few months down the line.
It's usually weeks. Sometimes it's actually days, but yeah, within 2 months.
Yeah. The first reasoning model came out. I don't even remember who it was at this point. Probably OpenAI, but who knows? And then immediately thereafter, functionally immediately thereafter, everybody had one.
Veo 3 seems incredible.
Deep research, that I think Google was first to the scene on that. Now Anthropic and OpenAI both have it.
Yeah, Veo 3 is incredible, but we know the next version of Sora is likely going to best it, coming out relatively soon. Midjourney has their video model coming out. Some of the clips are leaking. I
am excited about that one.
And they look really, really, really good. And so it all you get your 2 weeks, like sort of at best. That's your best case scenario. I mean, there's like the super edge case of 2 months, but now we're talking, there's like a 1% chance that you'll get 2 months of domination in the market. And at least at present, the consumers are willing to move really quickly. Oh, you can do Studio Ghibli videos? I'm sold. I'm off your platform. I'm over on this platform because they'll make studio. Oh, you can do the thing where it's the babies talking? You can do the baby talking trick? I'm gone. There's no loyalty is dying in the world of AI.
Right. OpenAI still has the mind share. I think everyone's heard of ChatGPT. Whenever I tell people what I do for a living, I say, you've heard of ChatGPT. It's something like that. But I do think you're right that is eroding fairly quickly. And it isn't going to be people saying, I am familiar with the Llama family of models, or, oh, I know that you're using Claude, and I know that that's with the company Anthropic. They're instead going to have the app on their phone that makes videos that happens to be using one of the 3 or 5 or whatever, like underlying models under it. And people won't care because it's just the app that makes the video of you getting to kiss your crush or whatever. And that's what it kind of has to end up being, right? We don't care that a lot of websites use AWS to run their compute. Like, oh, the virtual machine that powers this website runs on AWS. Who cares? Nobody cares, except for like the engineers themselves.
Pepperidge Farm cares, Daniel.
Sure, thank you. But nobody else actually cares. Similarly, oh, it was the OpenAI specific text-to-image model that did this. I now have one more brand loyalty point to OpenAI as a result. Nobody's going to do that. It's only these earliest days where you have to go to that specific provider. We are the LLM company. that's what's keeping that mind share there. But you're right. That is absolutely just falling apart over time.
Well, at least there's only one AI podcast out there to listen to.
Just the one.
And that is They Might Be Self-Aware. You have found it. There's no need to search any further. Welcome home, folks. Welcome home right here. You can be watching us on YouTube. You can be listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just kind of wherever you find podcasts. There are clips all around on TikTok and
What
YouTube.
do you listen to podcasts on?
Apple Podcasts and an app called Overcast are the two platforms that I use the most. I use Apple Podcast because that's what's in the Tesla, and I listen to a lot of podcasts when I am in the Tesla. But I don't actually prefer it. I prefer an app called Overcast by an independent developer named Marco.
Yeah, I was using one called Dog Catcher with 2 G's for a while. And then Spotify, I think, is where I've moved most of them over to at this point. Because it's in the car.
Consolidation.
So you can go to whatever podcast
we don't judge. There's no judging here.
That you use. And you can subscribe to us, and you can like us and thumbs us up and 5 stars us and comments and email fax. Do we have a fax number?
I'm working on it.
Okay, great. But however you get a hold of us and however you tell us how much you love us, because we know that Hunter still has that sycophantic model hooked up.
I do, yeah.
We're happy to see it.
Until next time, you have been listening to
They might be self-aware.